Hello viewers, and welcome to Exploring Cinema with Brian Meadows. I, of course, am Brian. My review today is on the 1977 Star Wars film, otherwise known as Episode 4, A New Hope. And as some of you have already known, I did a recent analyzed video on it, which my analyzed series is where I talk about the history of a film, the creation, specific parts like the production, filming, post-production, all that stuff, and, the reception, box office, critical. But now I will actually be reviewing it not as a Star Wars fan, but a movie fan. So as a warning, there may be very small repeats from the analyzed video, though I will keep this as spoiler-free as possible, simply because I realize that there are still some people who have not seen these movies. I mean, my girlfriend Mallory hadn't seen it until maybe a year ago, and, I didn't actually introduce it to her, so I'm kind of happy about that. I think I would have actually gone nuts if she hadn't seen it, but either way. Now we will get on to our review, and for those of you who don't already know, my rating system is based on lightsaber color. For right now, all I have is blue and red. Blue is good, red is bad. What is this? Without a doubt. The film's plot focuses on the Rebel Alliance, led by Princess Leia Organa, and its attempt to destroy the Galactic Empire's space station, the Death Star. This conflict disrupts the isolated life of the farm boy Luke Skywalker, who inadvertently acquires a pair of droids that actually possess the stolen architectural plans for said Death Star. And when the Empire begins a destructive search for the missing droids, Skywalker must accompany Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi on a mission to return the plans to the Rebel Alliance and hopefully rescue Princess Leia from her imprisonment by the Empire. Since I already talked a bit about pretty much all the characters and the actors in the previous video, the analyzed video, I will just talk about the main four actors, starting with Mark Hamill. He plays Luke Skywalker in his feature film debut. In his feature film debut. Before this, he had only done like a couple of TV shows, soap operas, and his acting is a little rocky at first, but he is written to be a bit mature and whiny. But as the film progresses, you realize that there's a change in him, and Hamill actually did really good portraying the character throughout, and he would only get better as the films go on. Carrie Fisher plays Princess Leia, and she was Princess Leia. She was able to portray every trait that you would want to see in a strong female lead. She was brave, compassionate, loyal, intelligent. Fisher gave a good first performance, and just like Hamill, she got better with each film, and honestly, like I even talked about this in my last video, but as we all know, she passed away this last Christmas, and we will all miss her. Harrison Ford plays Han Solo. He's a spice smuggler and the pilot of the ship the Millennium Falcon. By far, his performance was the best out of the three newcomers, though he did gain a bit of recognition already after he did American Graffiti, which was another film that George Lucas had actually directed before this point. Sure, he didn't give to the performance as much as he could have, especially if you've seen my analyzed film, you realize that a lot of the cast and crew didn't take this film seriously. But either way, he is definitely the most fun to watch, especially when the entire crew goes to the Death Star. And finally, we had the legendary Sir Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was a former Jedi Master and General of the Clone Wars, now going by the name of Ben Kenobi. Sir Alec gave a certain stability and gravitas to the character, and he also felt very mysterious, like he had a very rough and perhaps dark past, but he was also that very kind old man who mostly just wanted to be left alone, but was always there for those who were good to him and loyal, and who actually cared about him. Sir Alec also, he also helped to inspire the cast and crew to work harder, and contributed significantly to the completion of the film, though he did think that the story was, quote, fairy tale rubbish. but that's the kind of actor he is. Even if he doesn't think that the story or film is good, he still takes his job seriously, and he convinces those around him that what they are doing is important despite how they are feeling about everything or even how he is feeling. As for the story, this is legitimately a great story. By the mid-70s, science fiction movies were mostly brainy and socially conscious warnings from the future, such as films like Logan's Run and 2001: A Space Odyssey. But Star Wars redefined the genre. Not only that, the film was a space opera, but it was also a fantasy. It was the first film to mix genres in a way that could work. And the mythos in the universe that they were in was just so fresh and felt original. And the story took its time telling parts of the mythos, and it was done in a very satisfying and refreshing way. I still get goosebumps when Ben Kenobi tells Luke a little bit about his father, and basically what the Jedi were, and what the Force is. Visual effects still stand up to this day. They still hold up, and it's amazing to see how well. I even recently was able to acquire a bit more of an older copy of Star Wars through one of the relatives of Mallory, and just how the story holds up is amazing. The visual effects were groundbreaking for the time, achieving things that had never been done before. Special effects before George Lucas created Industrial Light and Magic, the visual effects company under Lucasfilm, all those special effects were mostly mechanical toys and puppets. But now, because of this film, the use of digital effects in film began, and Hollywood was ushered into the digital age of film. Honestly, half of the movies that we've seen these days with big spectacle movies would not be possible without this movie. Also with Jaws, but that's a different thing altogether. But this film brought us into the digital age of film. As for the cinematography, it is done so beautifully, having the special graphics of a fantasy film, but it also had the feel of a documentary style type of filming, and it complemented the set design, which felt lived in and dirty, more realistic. And now, for my favorite aspect in every Star Wars saga film, the John Williams score. The main theme itself is so spectacular in film, especially in the science fiction genre. I don't think it will ever be topped. And for this film, this is honestly my favorite Star Wars score ever written. I think the only one that really comes close to it is Empire, but just off by just a little bit. And that's mainly because the other scores, like I said, are either on par or just a little bit lesser. And not only do I think it's the greatest music in a film, it's great when compared to other genres, and in most aspects of music, I'd say that this score is the most important. I do have one small complaint about this movie. The original version is perfect. Without a doubt. I think that the original 1977 version is perfect. The complaint that I have about this movie has to do with the digital remastered versions. The small additions to it actually ruin certain parts of the film for me, and it's those certain aspects that actually make it a bit hard to watch, especially since certain additions do not enhance or fit into the story. So I either skip over those scenes or I just suffer through them. Though I mostly prefer the former. I always tend to do the latter. Like there's this one scene when a couple of main characters, this isn't really a spoiler, but they go into a town and they have this giant ass CGI created rendered creature. It just walks by the screen. It covers up the entire screen and you have no idea what's going on, just like my hand did. It's fucking annoying. But like I said, just the one complaint, I can live with it. To recap, I want to point out that Star Wars should never have worked. Those of you who have seen my analyzed video know that there were a multitude of problems happening during filming and post-production. It should have ended up being a disaster of a film. But no, instead we got one of the most influential films of all time. And the most, in my opinion, the most important film to influence today's cinema. Star Wars, or Star Wars A New Hope, whatever you want to call it. To me, it will always be Star Wars. Star Wars is a great film with compelling characters, a great story, beautiful and groundbreaking special effects, and wonderful world building. This would be in my top 5 films list, but it's not because of its sequel, honestly. I actually prefer the sequel over, but I will talk about that soon. But nonetheless, Star Wars was a perfect film when it came out, and then with the digital remastered editions, it's still a great movie, only now, instead of being perfect, it's near perfect instead. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me ramble. Now I must ask you, what did you guys think of Star Wars A New Hope? Do you guys love it? Do you hate it? Indifferent? Haven't seen it? Etc.? Doesn't matter. I want to know your thoughts. I welcome new perspectives. Also, if you want to support the channel, I do have a few things down in the description below for you to help out. I have my Facebook page for the channel, and I even have a Patreon account. So if you want to support it that way, please, I encourage you. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more reviews and content. There is always more to come. Anyway, thank you guys so much once again, and may the Force be with you, always. Have a good day, everybody.